you don't know what you don't know. And so the benefit of talking with people that you don't talk with all the time is hearing their solutions to the problems that you've been having.
Hi, everyone. We're so glad you're here on DocWorking, the Whole Physician podcast. I'm Jill Farmer, one of the lead coaches at DocWorking and one of the co-hosts of the podcast. And I'm really excited today to be joined by Victoria Silas MD, one of our other coaches at DocWorking who helps facilitate our community as part of our DocWorking Thrive program. And Victoria is also a board certified orthopedic surgeon specializing in pediatrics. She also has been a chief of surgery in her career, and she is a certified coach who now works full-time with physicians as part of her company, Medical Minds Consulting. And Victoria, today we're here to talk about why sometimes being a doctor can be lonely and why community is so important for physicians. So based on your own experience, as somebody who, you were working with people all the time, right? Patients, colleagues in the hospital. Why do you think it is that sometimes we say being a doctor can be lonely for physicians?
Well, I think even though you're around people all the time, you're not necessarily connecting with them, and you're really not necessarily connecting with them as your whole person. A lot of times when we go to clinic, we put on a little bit of a persona. For example, I'm naturally an introvert, but if I go into a clinic room and I don't talk, nobody talks. So I have to be a more extroverted version of myself when I'm in clinic. And that takes me away from myself and who I really am. And that can be a lonely experience. I also think that we are trained as physicians to do it alone. And so we don't always reach out for help when we have concerns about patients or about other things in our lives. We just figure, well, I'm a doctor, I'm supposed to handle it. And we don't get that added support when we need it. And we also sometimes don't want to express our vulnerability. And so that too can lead to loneliness because you're not really sharing all of who you are with people. And it's not appropriate to share all of who you are with everybody all the time, even though you're surrounded by people.
Yeah, really good point. I think both of us putting on our coach hats would tell someone that it does take some vulnerability to form real connections with people. And as I know, somebody I really like a lot, Brene Brown, who is a researcher and studied, she says not everybody has earned our vulnerability. So part of that learning to make meaningful connections with colleagues is to find trustworthy people who have earned that vulnerability and then have the ability to use them in a trusted relationship. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It does take a certain amount of time, well, depending on the person, but to express that vulnerability and be willing to show someone else where you don't know something or where you need help.
Yeah. And a little bit of a shameless plug here, but that's sometimes where a coach comes in really handy too, right? Because that's where we get that trusted thinking partnership as well. So let's talk about why it's important for physicians to create community outside of work. And of course, people are going to create community if they have kids or other interests outside of work. But what about creating community with other physicians? That's something that I know you value as well. And I want to hear more from you about why you know it's important.
Well, it's important to understand that you're in many ways just like everybody else. Sometimes we want to feel that we're unique and we're special, but again, that puts us in this armor of invulnerability. And so it's helpful to know that everybody worries about complications and everybody worries about patient satisfaction scores. And it really helps normalize your experience so that you don't feel badly about it if you get some kind of feedback that brings up concerns about how you're doing as a physician.
Tell me a little bit about why you like the DocWorking Thrive model of having a community on Facebook for physicians, a private, confidential community where physicians who are part of DocWorking Thrive can come together. You listed one of them, obviously, that nobody's alone in this and that other people are experiencing some of the things that they're experiencing. What else do you see as being meaningful in putting doctors together in this kind of a community?
Well, one thing that I really like about it is When you're in a community of doctors that all work in the same place, it can be a bit of an echo chamber. And people can have the same perceptions of other doctors or of administration. And so it's really valuable to have a larger community that's national for both the good and the bad, and even the ugly, right? So it's comforting sometimes to know, oh, these problems that I'm seeing, they're not unique to my facility. They're national problems. It's a national systemic problem. And that can change your thinking about it's not that you're working in an evil place or a difficult place. It's that these are universal problems that physicians across the country are dealing with right now. Or on the flip side, these are the universal benefits of being a physician in this time and place.
Yeah, I was going to say there's meaningful connection that comes from identifying that you're not alone and that we have the same challenges. And it can be really inspiring, right? To get together with other people who aren't just talking to the same people about the same things over and over again with no new solutions. And I know that's a big intention of what you are creating as a coach for that environment of being able to lift people up. Talk a little more about that.
Well, you don't know what you don't know. And so the benefit of talking with people that you don't talk with all the time is hearing their solutions to the problems that you've been having. It opens your eyes to what's possible, which I think is super important, particularly during this time that's been so stressful for physicians. We have to keep looking towards how can we make this better? Because if we don't keep our eyes and our hearts focused on how it can be better, it's not going to get better.
Yeah, really, really good point. So for somebody who hasn't been as part of a community like this before, or, their only communities have been through professional organizations, how do you see it working and how is it working for physicians who are joining in to make connections, to build relationships, to be supportive of each other in this DocWorking Thrive Facebook community?
I think there can be a natural hesitancy in opening up in a quote unquote public forum about how you really feel about this, that, or the other thing. And so the benefit of something like DocWorking Thrive is it's not public, it's private, and that privacy will hopefully allow people to open up in a ways that they wouldn't necessarily be comfortable doing. It also allows people to talk about things that they wouldn't necessarily want to talk about in their workplace.
And now for a quick message from our sponsor, EmpathIQ. Did you know that there's an association between positive feedback from patients and job satisfaction among physicians? And did you know that you could get that positive feedback on a daily basis from your patients and build your positive reviews online? EmpathIQ is a service that allows you to do just that by making it quick and easy for your patients to leave you a review at the end of the day. And by doing that, you're far more likely to build up a big stash of positive reviews, and you'll be able to feel great about the work you did that day. Let EmpathIQ show you how to get more reviews, tie them to your personal Google My Business page, and respond to reviews with confidence. Visit empathiq.io, that's EMPATHIQ.io, or call 858-375-5686. Mention that you're a DocWorking fan and get 2 months free.
I know you're passionate about learning. I happen to have known you for a while and you love learning. And so I know that's a big part of what you want to create too in this community is an opportunity to provide new information about subject matter that isn't just purely related to, somebody's professional practice. And we've talked about this in the past. Medical education is phenomenal at, giving people medical education, but sometimes doctors feel like they want more, information on some of the challenges of just living life, whether it's financial literacy or leadership or communication. So how do you see this community helping with that learning component of things as well?
Well, one of the things I love so much about physicians is they are inherently lifelong learners. I think it's in their nature, and they're certainly encouraged to be lifelong learners with things like having to recertify for boards and go to meetings and get CME and all of those things. But as you mentioned, sometimes their learning can be a little bit tunnel vision. And so one of the things we hope to do in DocWorking Thrive is open people's eyes to other areas of life, other teachers who are outside of medicine, who have wisdom that could help physicians in their day-to-day lives.
I love it. And I have to say, the community is already starting, and it's so fun to see people making connections and starting to build those relationships. It's got to be fun for you as the coach in charge of that facilitation as well.
Yeah, it was really delightful to see. And I know that some people say, well, social media, you're not really making connections with people, but I disagree with that. I think you absolutely have the possibility of forming real relationships with people, even if you just meet them online. And those relationships are as meaningful and important as you allow them to be.
Really, really well said. Final thoughts on why now, maybe more than ever, it's important for physicians to find community with people outside of just workplace or the places where they already have community. Why is that so important in this era we're in of practicing medicine?
Well, as you and I have talked about before, I think most physicians are inspired to go into medicine. But along the way through the slog that is medical school and residency and then starting practice, a lot of us can lose that spark. And so what we hope to do with DocWorking Thrive is help people reignite that spark of inspiration that brought them to medicine, that made them want to be in service for their lives.
Amen. There's no better way to say it. That's really the driving mission that is inspiring all of us who are on the DocWorking team to put this together to help keep the fires lit for physicians doing really, really important work in the world, including you. So Dr. Victoria Silas MD, thank you so much for sharing your ideas and reminding us why community matters, especially now.
Thank you, Jill. It was absolutely my pleasure.
And thank all of you for joining us today. We are so glad you're here. We're growing all the time. Tell your friends about us. We love having you as part of this community. For DocWorking, the Whole Physician Podcast, I'm Jill Farmer.
Hi, this is Amanda Taryn. I'm the producer of DocWorking, the Whole Physician Podcast. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you for listening.